what's up everyone? In this video we're going to be doing an update on our Bitcoin technical analysis. This is the Brave New Coin Liquid Index for Bitcoin, and this is weekly candles, and it is on a logarithmic time perspective. So in the last video that we looked at, we had a rising wedge and a head and shoulders that we broke out of, and we got this nice red candle right here. And our targets for Bitcoin at that point were 30K. We did have this line drawn right here as a point where we might experience a breather or maybe a small bounce, although we had our overall targets for this move on a higher perspective, looking at the weekly, down here at the 30. Or not at 30, but around 30. So as you can see, we have hung up a little bit at this level, which we thought we might. And this is the 0.5 Fibonacci retracement level. So you can see we took a anchor point right here, and then another anchor point at our high up here. And our Fibonacci retracement levels are a good point to suggest pullback levels. And as you can see, there's also quite a bit of price action at these levels. So I think it does a really good job of giving us good data to look at for this specific circumstance. But typically, with most pullbacks off a big move, you typically get a retracement back to the 618 Fibonacci level. And as you can see, this level right here also intersects pretty closely with where we're at time-wise, with this underlying white line that we have. And this white line is our lead-in support for the bull market. And if you've been watching our technical analysis, this lead-in support is the support that we gradually decline back to in a bear market. But once we break that level, that's when we get volatility and a lot of increased selling, and we get those huge moves down. And then typically, after we break this lead-in support line, throughout history, that has also been the move that usually takes us into the bottoming, that takes us into the next bull market. So we expect to break this white line at some point, but we also expect it to serve as a support in the near future, moving out of this move. And we expect it to come down pretty quickly, because this is a rising wedge that can be seen on the highest of time preferences. You know, you could see this on a monthly chart. We're looking at a weekly, but you know, this is a very macro perspective and a macro pattern at that. And then not only do we have a rising wedge, which is bearish, what made up the rising wedge was one head and shoulders right here, and then a second head and shoulders right here. So we had a rising wedge on a macro perspective made up of a two-headed monster. So I think there's pretty good reason to suggest that our momentum's probably going to end up taking us down to about the 30K level. And an exact point would be, I don't know, somewhere between 29 and 30. You could make the argument that we do chill out here for a little bit, considering that the RSI on the daily is pretty oversold. It's the most oversold that we've been since all of the major crises with Bitcoin. Although if you look at a weekly time perspective, you can see that down here we made it all the way down to this bottom. Over here we made it all the way down to the bottom. But here we still have a chance for one more good move down to the bottom before we get a bounce. So we might see a little bit of a bounce considering how oversold we are on the RSI on a daily perspective, but I don't think we really recover much ground considering that it looks to me like we still have at least one more move down on the weekly. And the RSI on the daily has recovered back up to this bottom point. So that could support a bounce off of this level for one more move down to very oversold levels before we do get a bounce and start to recover a little bit. Before we go to a smaller time perspective, I just want to point out these two lines right here, just so you guys who didn't see the previous analysis know what they are. This right here would be our 0.786 move for a fib retracement. So I think that's probably my scenario for a for a bear market, as most probable outcome for a bear market if we are in one right now. At the moment, giving the amount of information that I have available. So that takes into consideration technicals, macro, just a little bit of everything, the whole big picture. So I think my guess would be, if I was to speculate, this would probably be our bottom for the bear market. But this one right here would be, this is where we had our bump and run pattern over here. You could see we had a nice easy downtrend until we got to here, where we had a huge sell-off, which was our bump in the bump and run pattern, which means this is going to be our target to break, which we broke right there. And our next target to break would be the lead-in support line, which would be this target right here, which we failed once, and we ended up breaking it over here, which took us into the highly speculative part of this bull market. But it would also serve as a bump point, if you consider this to be a bump and run also, because this is just like this. This was a volatile move to the downside. This was a pretty volatile move to the upside. Theoretically, if we do break this line, that would be a bump and run move. It would probably suggest wanting to come down to this level right here as a target. And I think it's possible, but I think it's unlikely. I think that we have too much support up here. And I think that things are already very concerning with the overall economy. And I think that everyone, all the politicians and central banks, know what position we are in. And I believe they are ready to deal with the problems that may occur as we begin to try to tighten. So I don't think this bear market might last quite as long as the technicals might suggest also. But with that, that's just a quick explanation of what these two lines are. Let's take a look at a smaller time perspective to get a better idea of what's going on in the moment. All right, really quick, I'm going to stop on the daily, where every candle represents a day. And then we're going to quickly go over to the 4-hour candle chart. But I wanted to stop and show you guys what I was talking about with the RSI on the daily. We came down here extremely oversold. And we did come back up, and we're bouncing off that. So I think we could get another move down here to extreme oversold levels one more time. And I think that would actually make a lot of sense considering what's going on in the economy right now. The fixed income market looks absolutely terrible right now. Yields are just going through the roof, especially on the short end, and especially after today's FOMC meeting, which I find to be very interesting. I just wanted to stop right here real quick to show you guys this, so you guys could visualize what I was talking about. All right, so now we are on the 4-hour chart, where every candle represents a 4-hour time period. And you can see we've had that big drop that we were talking about coming out of our head and shoulders and our rising wedge pattern. And that took us down into what looks to be a bottoming formation, although not a very good one. We came down, we bottomed, and then the bottom fell out one more time, and we tried moving quite a bit lower. But that got bought up pretty quickly, and that took us back into what looks to be a price channel right in here. Not a very good one, albeit this is a pretty low time preference. So I think we can get away with this as an actual pattern. And you can see, as I was saying, it wasn't the best bottoming pattern. We tried to bottom, and you like to see a 1, 2, 3, where you get the bottom and then a 1 and then a higher low. And then that next move up is the one that takes you to try the breakout point. But here we had a bottoming, and then we bottomed again. We broke through that bottom. So I think that was pretty ugly to start. And, oh, you can even see, even since we came over to this chart, Bitcoin seems like it's starting to pick up momentum right now. So try to get through this video as quick as possible and get it posted. I do have a couple other ones that are pretty time sensitive too. So got a lot of editing to do, I guess, tonight. But with that, let's get back to the video. So we came back up and we tried breaking out from this level just to actually confirm this as a bottoming pattern, even though it looks pretty ugly. So we got rejected there, and now we are moving lower out of this pattern. And even on the 4 hour, you can see we do have the ability to come out of this channel pretty quick. As you can see, it looks like we're starting to do right now. This is probably going to start cascading here. Maybe it'll do it while we're on video. That would be kind of cool. Not really, but it would be a good moment to have on video. Alright, I also wanted to take a quick look at a different perspective that we could have also used in our analysis. You can see that within this channel, with this breakdown that we had, it did make a pretty nice inverted head and shoulders, where we do have the neckline outlined in the dotted green lines right up here, where we have our left shoulder right there, and then we have a head, and then a right shoulder. And it looks like we did try to break out. I think that it didn't break out just because of all the things that we've been talking about on this channel as of recent. But you can see that it did try to break out. And even if we did break out from this, you can see that a measured move, I basically just took from the bottom of this head up to the neckline, which would suggest our measured move out of this pattern. That would just take us up right back to where we started from, and we'd probably just end up smacking our heads against resistance and coming right back down. So, I mean, even if this did end up playing out as a head and shoulders, inverse head and shoulders, I think that it probably wouldn't have made it too far, and we would be in a very similar situation to what we are in at the moment. So I really think that also speaks to the fact that we are starting to get the mentality of selling the rallies. So you can see we tried rallying, and this became a position to sell into the strength that we were experiencing. So just take note of what the market is trying to say. You know, we can't make things work the way that we want them to. The best we can do is just listen to what the market wants to tell us. This move right here was a great example of selling a rally. So just wanted to point that out also. So yeah, I guess that does it for this video. I'm going to try to get this posted as quick as possible because it does look like it's going to be pretty timely information to get out as quick as possible. Just to mention one more time, at the chart we were looking at before, on a higher time preference, we think Bitcoin's probably due for a pullback to about 30,000, give or take a little bit. And that would be a good spot where I think would be to get a pretty good bounce on Bitcoin. I don't think we're going to get a bounce that's going to be good enough to save the bull market. But I think it's definitely overdue for a nice bounce, and I think that's a good spot to get it. And a dead cat bounce on Bitcoin could be quite a bit depending on certain variables like leverage and emotions, and maybe we get a pullback on yields and the dollar, but it doesn't look like we're going to get that for the near future, at least. For the time being, let's look for a try back down to about 30K, and then maybe we'll do an update when things have changed since then. Alright, so like this video to support the channel, comment below to let us know what you think about all this, and subscribe with the bell icon to receive notifications when we post content like this. Alright everyone, as always, stay one move ahead and have a wonderful day.